Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries.
On the show today, our top focus is the high-stakes Turkey elections, which is set to go into a runoff to choose the next president. Also on the show, we tell you all about China's efforts to broker peace in the Russia-Ukraine war. And is private Russian militia Wagner group double-crossing Putin? The latest round of revelations from the Pentagon leaks. All this and more in today's live broadcast from New York. At these times, only on WION World is One.
Hi everyone, welcome to WION Live Broadcast, New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at the latest stories making headlines this hour. It's official now. The Turkish Election Commission has announced that the country will go to a runoff in polls of the 28th of May after both candidates failed to get 50% majority. New weapons given to Ukraine by the UK will only cause further destruction. This, according to the Kremlin. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on tours of allied nations to secure support for the anticipated counteroffensive against Russia. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky says that he's hopeful of a deal to get fighter jets from Western partners after meeting British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, adding that he expects a decision to come soon and that a little more work was needed. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa reiterates his country's non-aligned position on the Ukrainian war and not favoring Russia. He calls for a peaceful resolution. This after the U.S. last week alleged that South Africa was transferring arms to Russia. Massive preparations underway at Cannes for its 76th film festival that opens on Tuesday. 21 films are contending for the prize Palme d'Or at the event this year. And after Barcelona are crowned Spanish champions, club president Juan Laporta says that he will do everything in his power to bring Lionel Messi back to the Nou Camp. Turkey's fiercely contested presidential election is heading to a runoff after neither Recep Tayyip Erdogan nor his rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu made it to the 50% threshold needed for an outright win. So the country's Supreme Election Board has formally announced the runoffs to be held on May 28th to decide Turkey's next president. With almost all ballots counted on Monday morning, Erdogan led with 49.42% of the vote to Kılıçdaroğlu's 44.95%. This is according to official figures provided by the state news agency. Erdogan's claim that his ruling alliance had won a majority in Sunday's presidential elections made headlines. He also added, however, that he is ready for the slated rerun.
Kesin sonuçların çıkmasıyla bu rakamın çok daha yükseleceğine inanıyorum. Seçim sistemimizin %50 artı bir oy sınırı sebebiyle Cumhurbaşkanlığı seçiminin ilk turda bitip bitmediğini henüz bilmiyoruz.
Meanwhile, Erdogan's rival is confident of winning the runoff, underlying the fact that more than 50% of the voters expressed their will for change in society. In his first appearance after polls closed, Kılıçdaroğlu said that Erdogan's party was destroying the will of Turkey.
Erdoğan, bütün iftira ve hakaretlerine rağmen beklediği sonucu alamamıştır. Hiç kimse bir oldu bittiye heves vermesin. Seçim balkonda kazanılmaz. Veriler şu anda akmaya devam ediyor. Milletimiz ikinci tur diyorsa başımızın üstüne. Bu seçimi ikinci turda mutlaka ama mutlaka kazanacağız. Herkes bunu görecek.
With the third contestant in fray, Sinan Oğan, managing 5% of the votes, both Erdogan and Kılıçdaroğlu are hoping Oğan's supporters will shift to their side in the runoff. Moreover, the parliamentary elections will also play a major role in the runoff. The overall parliamentary results so far suggest a victory for a range of nationalist parties, but a surprise loss for the six-party opposition coalition headed by Kılıçdaroğlu would expect it to clinch a majority. If successful, Kılıçdaroğlu has pledged to restore a parliamentary democracy system rather than Erdogan's presidential one. Erdogan, on his part, had curbed Parliament's voice in the later part of his tenure. Well, for more on this, we are joined by Colonel Rich Outzen, joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Turkey. Colonel, welcome to WION. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, some people that we talk to here in the United States say that they're open to change. They have an appetite for change moving on from Erdogan. However, it seems that Mr. Erdogan's decision to step up nationalist rhetoric during his campaign, it has paid off. Can you talk about this for us?
Certainly, and it's a pleasure to be with you. So nice to start the week here with WION. The Turkish electorate does swing to the right. It's heavily sort of center-right with a heavy dose of nationalism. Traditionally, there's been very few times when a center-left-led alliance has actually won a major direct election, either for parliament or more recently for the presidency. So Erdogan made the estimate that Turks would feel less than fully confident in the opposition candidate if he could paint him as being soft on security, being adjacent sort of to the PKK, which is the terrorist group, foreign terrorist organization that is Turkey's #1 security threat. So he stepped up those sorts of attacks in recent weeks. It seems to have worked. The turnout for nationalist parties was pretty high. Both the Nationalist Party aligned with Erdogan, the MHP, increased their parliamentary share by 1 seat. So too did the Nationalist Party aligned with the center-left, the CHP. They have E Party, which is also nationalist. But most surprisingly, in the presidential election, even though Erdogan dropped several percentage points from his 2018 performance, Kılıçdaroğlu, his main center-left opponent, did not directly benefit. And as a matter of fact, he underperformed somewhat what he and his allied parties did in 2018. The beneficiary of this was Sinan Oğan, who is also a nationalist. So I think we can summarize this as being a strong result for the nationalists. Erdogan's tactic of tacking to the right succeeded, as well as some of the sort of personal attacks against Kılıçdaroğlu and calling him into doubt. And Kılıçdaroğlu did not appear to win some of these critical center-right swing votes.
And it really does seem that the Turks have faith in the election process, despite the fact that there were some organizations who were claiming that Erdogan ultimately has an edge for a variety of reasons, one of them being that he has the media on his side. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's right. There's a power of incumbency that's particularly strong in Turkey. It's been described as a sort of a free press, but one in which the government has the commanding heights of press because they've been able to restrict sort of the freedom of maneuver of some of the opposition press outlets and make it more difficult. So maybe 90% of the press, by one estimate, is sort of government friendly, right, or AKP friendly. So what that means is it's not exactly a level playing field. Also, the power of incumbency means that President Erdogan has been able to make many promises of sort of free gas and free houses and government largesse to many voters, which some found compelling, and also to highlight what he's done as an incumbent in foreign policy and energy policy and so forth, and not focus attention on the rather weak economic results of the last year. That said, the mechanics of the election in Turkey are pretty solid. They have all of the parties are allowed to watch the voting from start to finish. They see the filling of the ballots, the transportation of the ballots, the validation, and the final counting. All of them can object. And there were very few allegations of significant fraud or irregularities. Compared to some places in the United States, I think we might say that this looked pretty good in terms of free and fair conduct. But again, the power of incumbency means that it was not exactly a level playing field.
Colonel Rich Outzen joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be watching these elections very closely. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thanks again.
Chinese Special Representative of Eurasian Affairs, Li Huai, will be visiting Ukraine, Russia, and several other European countries starting today. This is part of Beijing's bid to act as a middleman in the ongoing war in Ukraine. And it comes despite concerns around China's neutrality. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that the visit by the Chinese representative is a manifestation of China's commitment to promote peace talks.
中方对美方的言论表示强烈不满和坚决。5月15日起，中国政府欧亚事务特别代表李辉大使将赴乌克兰、波兰、法国、德国和俄罗斯5国访问，就政治解决乌克兰危机同各方进行沟通。此次中方代表赴有关国家访问，是中方致力于劝和促谈的又一体现，充分表明中方坚定站在和平一边。
Li Huai is the senior-most Chinese official to visit Ukraine since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. His trip could coincide with the beginning of a long-anticipated counteroffensive by Ukraine to recapture territory allegedly seized by Russia. The visit also comes a few days after European Union ministers backed the bloc's decision to reduce its economic dependence on China. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said the EU had to learn from the strategic mistakes it had made in the years before Moscow's war in Ukraine over being too dependent on Russian gas. Borrell stressed that the aim was not to decouple the European and the Chinese economies, but to rebalance their relationship. Meanwhile, the finance ministers of the group of 7 countries issued a communique on Saturday that made no mention of China at all. The communique said the global economy has faced multiple shocks, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ukraine crisis, and inflationary pressure. Amidst all this, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in Stockholm and will be participating in the second EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on a support gathering blitz in Europe. This comes ahead of an expected Ukraine counter-offensive. After Italy, Germany, and France, Zelensky is in the UK. He met British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Sunak is to confirm supply of hundreds of air defense missiles and unmanned aerial systems for Ukraine. This includes hundreds of new long-range attack drones. Zelensky and Sunak met at the British Prime Minister's Chequers country estate.
And you are actually the first foreign leader that I've had the privilege of welcoming here as Prime Minister. And there's a lot of great history here. In fact, this room that we're standing in, Winston Churchill made many of his famous speeches in World War II from this room. And in the same way today, your leadership, your country's bravery and fortitude are an inspiration to us all. I look forward to us discussing what more we can do to support you and your country.
There's an extremely negative view of UK's decision to supply long-range cruise missiles, and it adds that it does not believe it will change the outcome of the conflict. Last week, UK became the first country to start supplying Ukraine with long-range cruise missiles, also known as the Storm Shadow. The missile will help Ukraine hit Russian troops deep behind the front lines. However, UK received confirmation from Ukraine that it will not use the missiles on Russian soil. Zelensky reached the UK from France, where he met the top leadership. Over the weekend, he was also in Italy, Rome. The Pentagon leaks that took the world by surprise last month continued to make sensational revelations one after the other. In the latest, a Washington Post exclusive report says that some of these documents point to disunity within forces fighting from Russian side in Ukraine. The report talks about a time sometime in late January. While the battle for Bakhmut was still increasingly intense, there were heavy loss of lives on both sides in eastern Ukraine's towns. Russia's private militia, the Wagner group, was leading Moscow's fight in the city, but Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was reportedly disturbed by the loss of his men. So the report claims that he made Ukraine an extraordinary offer. Prigozhin reportedly said that if Ukraine commanders withdrew their soldiers from the area around Bakhmut, he would give Kyiv information on the positions of Russian troops. Ukraine could then use this information to attack Russian forces. The proposal was reportedly conveyed to Wagner's chief contacts in Ukraine's military intelligence directorate. Washington Post says that all of this was revealed in previously unreported U.S. intelligence documents leaked on the group chat platform Discord. Dozens of highly classified U.S. intelligence documents were leaked online earlier this year. It revealed sensitive information intended for senior military and intelligence leaders. Coming back to the Wagner group, owner of the private military group, Prigozhin has publicly feuded with Russian military commanders more than once. He charged them of having failed to equip and resupply his forces, which have provided vital support for Moscow's war efforts. But he's also an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. But the Russian president may not react well to the latest revelations. Prigozhin's offer to trade the lives of Wagner fighters for Russian soldiers might as well be seen as a treasonous betrayal. A man in Florida has set the record for the longest underwater hibernation. He has been underwater for more than 74 days in a row, but the diving explorer and medical researcher says that his goals are more than just setting a record. So what are they exactly, and how did he achieve this feat? More in our next report.
Scientists believe life on planet Earth first evolved in waters. The vast, endless oceans that cover more than 70% of this blue planet continue to host life in most diverse forms. But wait a minute. What's that? Is that a man? Yes, he is. What is he doing under the sea? Well, let's find out. Meet Joseph Dittori, or Dr. Deep Sea. The university professor has been living underwater for more than 74 days. He recently set a world record for just this. But Dittori isn't just settling for the record and resurfacing. He has bigger plans.
The record is a small bump and we love it and I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have it, but we still have more science to do. The science doesn't stop here.
Dittori has been living at Florida's Keys Lodge for scuba divers from the 1st of March. The location? At the bottom of a 30-foot deep lagoon. But how is this man living underwater for so long? To begin with, he eats a protein-heavy meal of eggs and salmon. He exercises daily with resistance bands and gets enough sleep. The mainstay of his daily routine is research, which includes daily experiments in physiology to monitor how the human body responds to long-term exposure to extreme pressure.
So the thing that I miss most about being on the surface is literally the sun. The sun has been a major factor in my life. I usually go to the gym at 5 and then I come back out and I watch the sun rise.
The outreach portion of mission includes conducting online classes and broadcast interviews from his digital studio beneath the sea. During the past 74 days, he has reached over 2,500 students. The mission combines medical and ocean research along with educational outreach.
The idea here is to populate the world's oceans, to take care of the world's oceans by living in them and really treating them well, not necessarily, just make another record.
Dittori plans to continue life underwater till the 9th of June, when he completes exactly 100 days. This will lead to completion of an underwater mission dubbed Project Neptune 100. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Vice Media Group, the iconic digital brand known for websites like Vice News and Motherboard, has filed for bankruptcy. Vice Media has also said that it has agreed to the terms of an asset purchase agreement with a consortium of its lenders. The consortium includes Fortress Investment Group, Soros Fund Management, and Monroe Capital. The consortium has agreed to provide about $225 million as a credit bid for almost all of the company's assets and a significant part of its liabilities. The company said in a court filing that its assets and liabilities ranged from $500 million to $1 billion. The company was founded by Shane Smith, Gavin McInnes, and Surush Alabi in Montreal in 1994. The media house created a niche for itself through its in-depth and visually appealing documentaries. Its documentaries looked at global issues in an easy-to-understand colloquial manner. Vice became popular for special reports in ISIS fighting, with one journalist embedding himself among ISIS fighters for 3 weeks in Iraq and Syria, that being the highlight. In 2017, the media house was valued at $5.7 billion after private equity firm TBG made a $450 million investment. But since then, things have been downhill. In 2021, the company's valuation dropped about $3 billion. Currently, Vice is valued at about a fraction of what it was in 2017. Vice Media's bankruptcy brings an end to a daring attempt to revolutionize digital journalism. That's all the time we have from New York City. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching WION Live Broadcast. I'm Susan Tehrani. I'll see you tomorrow, but don't go away. A lot more news and headlines coming up next, only on WION. World is One.